Hello there, fellow cultists. This is DM Nell, and I'm back with you today to do another video. This is video number 48, and we are rapidly approaching video 50. 50 is a big landmark number. I don't know why. It's a half of 100, so I don't know why that makes it special, but it is. So we are going to do something special for our 50th 50th video, and by our, I mean mine. And so as I've mentioned before on my other videos, I plan on doing a live stream of a game that I'm going to run for some hapless victims, volunteers, and should be fun. It's going to be a one-shot, but it is going to be hopefully a memorable one, because I plan on making it a pretty different experience from what I'm used to running in Shadow of the Demon Lord. So I'm not going to give away too much, but that's coming up in episode 50. Hopefully, I will finish up the adventure here shortly. Then that will enable me to start soliciting for volunteers and actually get a date set. I'm thinking sometime in the middle to latter part of May to get the live stream going. So be on the lookout. I will be posting in Facebook, in the Shadow of the Demon Lord page, and also in the Shadow of the Demon Lord Discord server, looking for some people interested in joining me. So be on the lookout for that. But that is still a couple episodes away. I have to get through this one and one more first. And so what are we talking about today? Well, we are talking about another villain. This is part of my villain series of Shadow of the Demon Lord. The reason I want to focus in on villains of Shadow of the Demon Lord is because I think that villains make or break a story. So the last one I did was on Ashrakal, the Witch King, and I would say he's like villain number one, numero uno, the head honcho, the big cheese, the big kahuna, probably the most infamous villain of Shadow of the Demon Lord, besides perhaps some of the more deific villains. And of course, the Demon Lord himself, or itself. But I'm trying to bring this down to something that you can actually use in your game. And so Ashrakal was my first choice, but my second choice, I wanted to ratchet it down a notch. Now, Ashrakal was he's more of a master tier villain. He is an end game villain that you would want to set up as your big boss at the finale of your long run 11 session campaign, or however many sessions you run. But this time I wanted to focus on a villain that is maybe more of a mid tier, so an expert path or an expert tier villain. And this one might surprise you. I am choosing a villain that showed up in the first campaign adventure path. I'm pulling my book out here. Tales of the Demon Lord. She was featured in this book, or in this adventure, and she really doesn't play a major role. I gave her, when I ran this, I gave her a role that was pretty much in line with what the text in the game recommended. But I really liked the villain. I liked her as a character, her as an opponent, and I wanted to make more of her. And what really got me thinking about this was that she didn't die. When I ran Tales of the Demon Lord, she was a villain that came in with a specific agenda. And I'm not going to spoil Tales of the Demon Lord for anyone who hasn't gone through it yet or is planning on running it. But she came in. She is in the adventure first. She has a specific agenda. And the agenda is tied to the main story of the campaign, but her role in it is fairly small. So when I ran her, she came into the story for a specific purpose, and that purpose wasn't necessarily to kill the PCs. She was after something, and she needed the PCs to help her get it. And so the PCs had to bargain with her, and ultimately do her bidding in order to prevent her from continuing her rampage through the city of Crossings. And so at the end of the adventure, she ended up surviving, and she's still wandering the world. And that's what got me thinking that this is a character that could have easily been a, step in, let the PCs have their fun with her as a 30-minute battle, and be done with her. But she survived, and anybody that survives an encounter with PCs, I think, is somebody that needs to be focused in on a little bit more and given some notoriety. And so I chose the Lady of Sighs and Sorrows for this purpose. But the problem is there's not a whole lot of information that is provided for her. In the Tales of the Demon Lord, it does go into a little bit of information regarding her, but mostly how it pertains to the actual story of the campaign. So it doesn't go into her background, doesn't really go into where she comes from, why she has the object that she has, and why it was stolen from her, and why she wants it back. None of those things are really explored. They're just kind of in there as a setup for the adventure. So what I wanted to do is to take that character, take that villain, and make her a fully rounded, fleshed out villain that you can use in your campaign, and that I can use, more importantly, because this is pretty much about me, that I can use in my campaign in a future session, or in a future campaign, I should say. She's not really going to fit in the campaign I'm currently running. But anyway, so that's what I want to do with the Lady of Sighs and Sorrows. Now, that's not her name. That's just the title that they give her in the adventure. Her actual name is Lucretia, and they give an image of her here that matches the description that they provided for her, which is very vague and basically just says that she has, red hair and pale skin. So that's essentially it. But they do provide an image here that kind of matches that. So her name is Lucretia, and her title is A Lady of Sighs and Sorrows. And that's really about all we know about her. Other than this picture, she has a dagger. So we can assume that this dagger means something to her and is probably of some importance or of some power. So what else can we surmise from this image? She looks to be very formal. She wears her hair up. But of course, she's a vampire, so that means that she's a sloppy eater, and she's got freshly fed here because she's got blood dripping from her blood-soaked face. But beyond that, she looks very composed, very calm, and very regal. So she seems to be somebody that has maybe a noble background, and somebody that has been raised with that sort of arrogance. And I think that we can work with this, and we can create a pretty decent villain out of her. We really just need to give her some motivation, and we need to give her a place to call home. And make that place special. So first of all, let's talk about where she comes from. Now, again, the text in the adventure doesn't really say where she comes from. It just says that she had a tower somewhere, and that the item that she is in the adventure trying to retrieve was stolen from her tower. So that could be pretty much anywhere. So I was looking through the core rulebook, trying to figure out where would be a good place for her to have originated from, or where her homeland is. And I was considering someplace in the Empire, perhaps. But I thought that was maybe too far away and too far to the south. The Tales of the Demon Lord is, after all, set in the Northern Reach, so I figured we should probably just keep her in the Northern Reach. This is a vampire, after all, so she can't really travel, um, in daylight. So she's fairly limited as far as where she can go, unless of course she employs magical means to get to where she needs to go. And she can do that because she is according to her stat block, she is she does have magic at her disposal, which we'll get to here in a moment. But where could she possibly be from in the Northern Reach? So I went back to the core rule book, and that actually what I did was I went back to the map of the Northern Reach, and let me see if I can pull that up here. Whoops, I don't want to do that. Come on, work with me. There we go. Okay, so I wanted to find a place for her. So I looked at the map of the Northern Reach, and I tried to figure out where would be the best place that she could come from. Now, there are a couple of things that jump out here that could be that have a lot of potential. The first place is the Dark Forest over here. So let's take a look at the entry of the Dark Forest in the core rulebook. So the core rulebook says that the Dark Forest was once part of the Mistwood. The Dark Forest's evil reputation has kept it from becoming lumber for the growing communities in the east. Beastmen infest these woods, gathering at a large sinkhole somewhere in the depths, where they cast down the viscera of their sacrifices to feed their dark god. So that has some potential, but this sounds to me more like a hub for beastmen, and not necessarily a place that I would associate a noble vampire existing in, or choosing to call her home. But that has some potential. So that is one option. And then looking through the rest of this, we have, we have the Spider Woods up here. That's really more of the Queen of Spiders domain. So we really don't want to go there. We've got the mountains. I really don't see her as being a mountain person. Then we have some other areas here in the Highlands. We got the Mistwood, the Haunted Forest, Soldier Forest, and the Old Wood. We also have the Barrows. Now, the Barrows is interesting because Barrows are typically associated with undead, but there's a whole thing on Barrow Wights, a whole supplement on Barrow Wights that provides some lore for the Barrows, and it really deals mostly with the wights that exist there. So I don't really see that as being a good home for Lucretia. The Black Hills, again, that is the Black Hills are featured in one of the episodes or one of the adventures in the Tales. But it doesn't seem like a place that fits for her either. But then this caught my eye. The Mistwood and the Haunted Forest. Now, the Mistwood I like because, vampires and mist go together, right? But the Mistwood is also where the hidden kingdom of Alfheim can be found. And I don't think that the Queen of Summer would want to share her forest with a vampire queen, so I ruled that one out. But a good runner up is the Haunted Forest. Now, when I looked at the Haunted Forest in the core rulebook, it doesn't give a whole lot of information, but it does state that this dense stand of birch trees was once part of the Mistwood, but has since become a forest apart. Mist curls between the white trunks day and night, no matter the season, and the trees grow so thickly that it is easy to become lost. Evil fairies, spirits, and other dreadful creatures make their home here, drawn by the ineffable darkness in its center. All right, so that last part of that last sentence really drew my eye, and that kind of along with the second sentence that says mist curls between the white trunks day and night, no matter the season. Those two parts of this paragraph kind of cinched it for me. So we have mist, which is associated with vampires, and then we have darkness at its center. So I think that we have a home in the haunted forest for our Queen of Darkness. Why did I put that over there? Our Queen, or Lady of Sighs and Sorrows, I mean. Queen of Darkness is somebody entirely different. Okay, so we have a home for her. So we're going to put her lair in the haunted forest. Forest. All right, now it does say in her description that she has a tower. So this could be a tower that's part of a larger castle, or it just could be a freestanding tower. Now she is also a person of some arcane ability, and we know that because when we look at her stat block, which I will bring over here. Whoops, come on. Okay, so her stat block down here at the bottom has her with a power score of 4, which means that she's got a good amount of power at her disposal, but it only provides 2 traditions for her, the divination tradition and the shadow tradition. The shadow makes sense. You know, she's a vampire, so, you know, shadow totally makes sense. Divination is interesting because there's not a, you know, I mean, why would a vampire care about divining things? I'm not really sure how that fits with her, so that can actually kind of come into her background that we need to create for her. And it also might be a good, interesting tool for us to use to determine what her ultimate purpose for being is. She clearly has an interest in divining things and in finding things. Of course, in the adventure, she is looking for something specific, but she has chosen eavesdrop, which means she, she has interest in gathering intelligence, augur, and locate. So let's put that in our back pocket for now. She has an interest in knowing what's going on in the world, so we want to keep that in mind. But for now, she has a power of 4, so she is an arcanist of some skill. So I would say we just leave her tower as a tower and not as a part of a castle. Castle is I like castles for vampires, but it's a little too close to Curse of Strahd for my liking, or Ravenloft. So we don't necessarily want to go there. So I think I like just having her in a tower. Now it can be a pretty big, massive tower, and it can be the the thing that draws the evil to the haunted forest, the darkness at its center. Could be the tower, and it could be her within the tower. So let's just leave her in a tower. In the center of the haunted forest. All right, so we've got a home for her. All right, so she needs a reason for being. She needs a purpose, and she needs a backstory. How does she become a vampire? Is she associated at all with the Witch King, who were, the men of Gog, pretty much created undead in the world? So how is she tied to that? Does her lineage go back that far, or does her story go back that far, or is she a more recent creation? Given her appearance, I would say that she's probably a more recent creation, and not a direct link to the Witch King for two reasons. Number one, we already have the Witch King as a villain, so we don't really need to tie her to him. He's already got some other villains that we'll talk about in the future that are associated with him directly. So I think we can leave that alone, and we can have her be her own villain. So when was she created then, and why was she created, and who created her? These are all great questions. So let's say who created her? Why was she created? And what's her motivation? So these are, great questions that really will give her a purpose for being. And we don't know the answer to these. So this is all up to us to create and to flesh out as much as possible. Now, let's take a look at some examples from other lore, vampire lore, to help us kind of develop an idea for our vampire. And we don't want to necessarily do a carbon copy steal of other vampires, but we can look at how other vampires' motivations are in pop culture and see how we can develop ours along a similar vein. So, most vampires are created by a senior vampire, an older vampire, and kept around for a reason, or they're just created and left to fend for themselves. So taking a look at the most famous vampire in fantasy role-playing games, we're talking about Count Strahd from Ravenloft. Now, of course, Count Strahd is kind of a ripoff of Dracula, kind of, sort of, at least in appearance. They definitely took the Dracula vibe in creating his overall look, but his actual backstory isn't really the same as Dracula. So his backstory is that he was he was a noble, and he was in love with somebody who didn't love him back. That person fell in love with somebody else. I think they even married this other person, this rival. Strahd was heartbroken. He became a vampire, basically due to unrequited love and hatred for what this rival had done to him and his desired relationship with the person that he couldn't have. So, and there's a lot more to it than that. I just simplified it super much from what I recall of Count Strahd's lore. But that's basically it. So he's a vampire that rules over Barovia from Castle Ravenloft, and he's got the whole Dracula vibe going. Now, if you look at the lore for Dracula, you've got a warrior barbarian king that liked to impale people, to essentially to warn off other invasions into his land, or invaders into his land. And so he was a pretty brutal and cruel person. He also had a love interest, and when that love interest died or killed herself, then he was a devout worshiper of God, but he essentially denounced God, cursed him out actually, and as a result, he was cursed and became a vampire as a result of that. So that is, that's a direct divine curse that created, Dracula. So that's from the normal real world Dracula lore. What else do we have to draw from? So, pretty popular vampire series is Anne Rice's vampire series, The Vampire Chronicles, and probably the most popular vampire in that series is the vampire Lestat. So the vampire Lestat's backstory is fairly complicated, and not really that interesting. I mean, he's got his own book, The Vampire Lestat, but his actual backstory, he's got somebody created him, but he didn't really teach him a whole lot, and Lestat had to learn a lot for himself. And that book is more about the growth of Lestat, both in the past and when he wakes up in the future, in modern times. So there's not a whole lot of backstory there, and his motivation really is notoriety. He just wants to be the center of attention. He wants to be a mover and shaker. He wants to that's basically, he wants to shake things up. He wants to draw out vampires from hiding. He wants to put the spotlight on himself. And all of that draws the attention of the elder vampires, who don't want to be drawn out into the spotlight. And they try to stop him, and all of that ends up causing the vampire queen, Akasha, I think was her name, to rise up and take Lestat as her consort. Anyway, she likes him. She digs him, and she wants to make him her boy toy. But there are other plans, and that goes south. But at any rate, so Lestat's motivations essentially are cast off the traditions of the past and embrace the modern world and come out into the light as a vampire and see what happens. Essentially, I don't see that being Lucretia. Lucretia seems to me like a solitary creature that doesn't really. She doesn't care if people know she exists, but she doesn't want to necessarily advertise it. So I don't see her sharing the same type of motivation as Lestat. As far as a love interest like Dracula or Strahd, I don't want her to have that cliche, simply because I feel like it is a cliche for vampires, and I'd like her to be a little bit different. So I would prefer our vampire to be perfectly fine being a solitary creature. Perhaps she was married when she was a noble, and perhaps that was her first kill to rid herself of that baggage. But as far as having that being her motivation for existing, I don't think so. I think she needs something greater purpose. And what I would like to suggest is that her purpose has something to do with the future of the world and the artifacts that she collects. Now, without saying what the artifact is, well, I might have given away when I shared her stat block, but there is an artifact or a relic that she has in her possession in the Tales of the Demon Lord. She had it in her possession, then it was stolen from her, and then she retrieves it. At least in my campaign, she retrieved it and took it back to her lair. So I think that should be her purpose. That should be her reason for existing, is that she is seeking a means to avert the end game for the world. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So what is the end game for the world? Well, and is that common knowledge? I think that there are people and entities in the world that are aware of the Demon Lord. There are more immediate threats, of course. The old gods, the Church of the New God has the adversary, Diabolus, and of course, all of the immediate threats that keep people occupied. So, is there a whole lot of attention given to the actual Demon Lord? Well, there is by his cults, or by its cults, and so therefore there is a segment of the population that knows the Demon Lord exists and what his ultimate goal, or what its ultimate goal is, and its ultimate goal is to destroy everything. So I would like to propose that Lucretia may have been a member of this cult, or maybe was a victim of this cult at some point in her mortal life, and has learned of the Demon Lord's existence and its goal, and has a strong motivation to avert that. And so what her goal would be, or her desire would be, to find the means to do that. And this kind of fits in really well with what I have in mind for my end game in my mega campaign, in so far as finding Andromeda from crashing into the Milky Way. It's bigger than that, actually. You can't do, there's no way. We're specks of dirt on a rock that's floating around on an insignificant arm of a galaxy in the real world. And presumably Earth is as well. URTH Earth, not our Earth. Not confusing at all. So, and I don't know how much a noble from a pseudo Dark Ages Europe centric campaign would know about the universe and everything. Probably not much, but she is intelligent enough to know that there is more to this world, and that there is a mighty entity known as the Demon Lord that its goal is to destroy everything. So her motivation will be to find a means to stop the Demon Lord. And how's she going to do that? Well, she's going to try to divine any clues or any ways or any means that she can of, first of all, she's going to learn everything she can about the Demon Lord, and what it is, and if it has any weaknesses. So maybe that was her motivation for being in the cult to begin with. Or maybe she was just drafted, or maybe, who knows. But she was in a cult that gave her knowledge of the Demon Lord. So what was that cult? Well, let's say the cult that is featured in the Tales of the Demon Lord is the Brotherhood of Shadows. So the Brotherhood of Shadows is a cult that is a pretty worldwide cult, and I'm going to bring up Hunger in the Void to see if it can give us some more information on that particular cult, and that would fit with our development of Lucretia. And let's see here. Page 20 something. All right. Well, just to show you what I'm doing here, I'm looking for the Brotherhood of Shadows is featured in the. Here we go. It's featured in the Hunger in the Void, and it gives the background here. So, a society spoken in whispers and shrouded in mystery, the Brotherhood of Shadows has spread its tendrils throughout the Empire. Its sordid history is rooted in the old aristocracy of Gog. Okay, so its history is sordid. Its sordid history is rooted in the old aristocracy of God. So we have an aristocrat. Vampirism is linked to the men of Gog. So she can be a descendant that has some noble blood in her. The Brotherhood not only survived the fall of that dark tyranny, but also thrived in its aftermath. So it's been around since the time of Gog, and that means it's an old cult. So it makes the most sense that she is part of the Brotherhood of Shadows, but here's the problem. It's a Brotherhood. Now, even though it's called the Brotherhood, I don't think that it's basically a sausage club exclusively, but it does state, it does kind of give an indication that the female members of this group probably are not as held as important as the male members of the group. So that can play a role in her part in the Brotherhood or in the cult. Now, there are members of the cult that are referred to as mothers and fathers. Each sect has a hierarchy with a father or a mother at its head, supported by a number of aunts and uncles. And even though the sects vie and fight against each other, they're all obedient to the grandfather or grandmother, who is the highest ranking member of the Brotherhood. Okay, so this is basically set up. This cult is basically set up as a family unit, utilizing those terms. So she could fit in. She could have been brought in to this as kind of a Charles Manson-like family, joined the cult, and then realized what the cult was, or that sect, I should say, and then realized what that was all about, and then didn't want to stay with the cult, or tried to escape, and then perhaps was murdered or sacrificed, and that may be what caused her to become a vampire. So I'm just kind of throwing out ideas right now. These are little seeds that we can plant and maybe formulate into a bigger or a better background. But I like the idea that she was part of the Brotherhood of Shadows. So we can put in here somewhere that she was a member of the Brotherhood of Shadows cult. All right, so that's good. It's a good start. She was a member of the Brotherhood of Shadows cult, which means that she could have come from anywhere, but we already said that she came from the Northern Reach, and that she had, that she lives in the haunted forest. So let's take a look around the map again and see, where the northern reach, what's around the haunted forest. Is there anything that can give us a clue as to where she may have originated? Okay, so it looks like there's a settlement called Last Rest. And it looks like it's on the edge of the haunted forest, and that it is also off of the this river that flows either into the cold lake or out of the cold lake. So I like the fact that there is a settlement that is close to the haunted forest. That means we don't have to create something. There's already something here. Now, I already looked in the core rulebook, and there's nothing in there about this settlement. So we can do whatever we want to with this. There's no pre-existing lore that's associated with it. So we can say that this settlement here is the remnant of an older settlement that was perhaps a settlement of the men of Gog, and that Lucretia's people have always been in Last Rest. So she comes from Last Rest. Now, how big of a town would it be? Probably not as big as Crossings, but I don't want it to be a small village either. We want it to be something kind of in between, or at least it had been something of a larger settlement, not a city, maybe not even a town, but maybe a large village, something kind of akin to Barovia. And so we're going to make Last Rest be a fairly sizable village, and it will have let's say a castle in it, because nobles live in castles, right? And so Lucretia was one of the nobles that presided over Last Rest. So the Brotherhood of Shadows would have come into Last Rest, infiltrated the village, and would have sought somebody of power to fund them and to join their ranks. So let's say Lucretia was a young woman that was trying to find her place in the world. She was rebelling against her parents, as young women do. Perhaps she had an arranged marriage with some other noble somewhere else that she didn't want. And so she is looking for a way out of that and looking for her own identity. She's approached by a member of the Brotherhood who either seduces her or maybe just talks her into joining. And she's brought into the family sect of Last Rest. And that is where she is indoctrinated into the cult. So that can be an explanation as to why she joined the cult. Now, why did she leave the cult, and how did she become a vampire? Well, I like the idea that she realized at some point after joining the cult that destroying the world was fucking insane. And so she was looking for a way out, but being in a cult, you don't get out of a cult easily. So she was seeking a way or a means of escaping. The cult probably discovered that she was trying to leave them, and then they captured her and probably set her up as a sacrifice or as part of a ritual for the demon lord. So as a result of that, she would have probably been killed, and she probably would have been disposed of in a rather, haphazard way. But I'd like to tie this into the relic that she is trying to retrieve in the Tales of the Demon Lord. So I think that that would be one of the reasons why, or it could be why she became a vampire, is because she had a relic of power in her vicinity at the time of her death. Her death was linked to the relic, and the let's say that that her home and last rest had some necromantic ties to the kingdom of Gog, or the men of Gog, who, again, remember, they were the original necromancers. So some of her ancestors may have been necromancers, and maybe all of that resulted in her rising up from her sacrificial death, becoming a vampire and slaughtering that sect of the cult, or the Brotherhood of Shadows, um, and then retrieving that relic that she has in her possession before it's stolen from her. I kind of like that idea. And we can probably put some more meat around that, but that is a fairly good, I think, bare bones background or backstory for her. She has a motivation, that is to stop the Demon Lord. She has a hatred for the Brotherhood of Shadows cult, which plays into the story of the Tales of the Demon Lord. And it gives her a reason for being, other than, oh, woe is me, I lost my love, and now I'm going to try to get them back. Yeah, okay, whatever. This is a more solid purpose for existing, and something that would drive her to endure the loneliness of an eternity of existence. So I like this, and I think I'm going to go with that. So what I need to do now is just flesh it out even more. But this video is already running along, so I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. But we have a good start for Lucretia, the Lady of Sighs and Sorrows, for her being a contender for a good villain, a good centerpiece villain for an expert tier adventure. And what I see her being is the central figure around the entire 4 levels of an expert tier adventure. In fact, it could be comprised of everything from the starting tier all the way up through the end of the expert tier. But she is only a 250 difficulty. So we can't really make her a master tier villain without boosting her up significantly. And I kind of like the idea of her being just a mid-tier villain for a campaign, and that there is a greater villain above her that would finish out that campaign. Now, what that looks like yet, I don't know. But I have ideas of a more powerful vampire, maybe kind of acting in the background, that even maybe she's not aware of. Or perhaps she is aware of, but is an unwitting puppet of his. But I don't like that. I don't want her to be an unwitting puppet. I think she's intelligent, and I think she knows what is going on, but around her. But maybe she made a deal with this other entity. I don't know. Have to put some thought around that. But at any rate, that's where I'm going to go with this. And I'm going to work on this some more. And if I kind of develop a whole backstory fleshed out, and an idea for an actual campaign, we will revisit Lucretia, the Lady of Sighs and Sorrows. We need to figure out why she's called that, Sighs and Sorrows. Maybe she sighs a lot. And maybe she, I don't know where the sorrows comes in. Maybe she's sad because of, the world ultimately ending. But, or maybe she's sad at the loss of her immortality. Who knows? Anyway, we'll figure out why she earned that title. But we also need to figure out what the current what the current environment is for her. So her tower is in the center of the haunted forest. How did that come to be? Last Rest is probably a place that is aware of her and probably scared shitless of her. What other creatures exist in the haunted forest? Who are her servants? who what are her resources that she can draw out of the haunted forest that makes her formidable. These are still things that we need to answer, and I need to add to my little presentation here for Lucretia. But this is all a good starting point, and I think I'll leave it there for now. So if you have any ideas, please feel free to add it in the comments of my YouTube channel. It's important that we communicate on the YouTube channel because that helps to increase the visibility of my videos in the YouTube algorithms. So if you have any ideas, don't post it in Facebook or the Discord channel. Put it in to the YouTube comments, and that way it'll help make the video a little bit more visible if people are doing searches for Shadow the Demon Lord content. So at any rate, give me your ideas. I'd like to know what we can do with Lucretia to make her as cool a villain as Strahd is in Ravenloft, or as Dracula is, or as Lestat is. We want to make her her own thing, her own villain, her own purpose, her own person. So give me your ideas on what we can do to flesh this out some more, and I look forward to seeing what you can come up with. So with that, I will let you all go and give a mighty hail to the Lord Master Demon Lord Rob Schwab for creating this wonderful game that we all love. And I will catch you next time when we do our episode 49, which is as of yet undetermined what I'll be covering on that one. So at any rate, catch you next time. Peace out, as Colville says, or something like that. I'm just buying time to find how I close this video. There it is. All right, I'm out for reals this time. See ya.